You're watching Hot Wok Academy. My name is Mingjin Tong, and today I want to show you how to make huaqun, a delicious scallion roll, steamed bread from northern China. Let's cook. For the ingredients for our scallion rolls, or as in Chinese we call them huaqun, which means like a twisted flower, that kind of like a rose, okay? The ingredients are very basic. You've got some all-purpose flour here in the sifter, and that's for dusting later on if you need. We've got 2 cups of all-purpose flour. I've got a mixing bowl for my liquid ingredients. I've got oil. This is Maldon, kind of a crispy sea salt. If you're not familiar with this product, I want to encourage you to go get some, M-A-L-D-O-N, and it's a formed crystal salt and really quite delightful for this recipe. Of course, we've got scallions, I've got sugar, salt, yeast, and a little over a cup of milk, about 1.5 cups of milk. And of course, we are going to use our steamer. So just if you're not familiar with this, this is a bamboo steamer, and you'll see later, it sits on top of a wok that has water boiling underneath, and this is how we are going to steam all of our ingredients. Here's how we make the dough for this recipe. So what you want to do is you'll want to start with your yeast. This is just instant yeast, and it's about 1 teaspoon here. So let's go ahead and put that into our mixing bowl, our target mixing bowl there. And of course, yeast is alive and it needs some fuel. That's what causes it to make the rising action. So the fuel that we're going to be using is sugar. And what we're going to do, I'm actually going to add probably about 1/2 cup of sugar there. Now, that is quite a lot, but the sugar is also acting as a way to sweeten the bread for the recipe. And then I do also want to add just a pinch of salt. And salt is always good to help bring out more flavors. Not to make it salty, but to help the flavors to really be combined. And then I've got here my milk, and that's about 1.5 cups of milk. So I'm gonna go ahead and pour that all in. And the reason we use milk and not water is that milk will add kind of what we call in Chinese a sweetness or a freshness to your buns that you're making, okay? So let's give that a good mix. And what's happening here is that everything is dissolving together, and we're gonna have essentially one liquid that's gonna go into the flour, and we will make our dough. So give that a good mix. I can still feel a little grain down there. This is gonna keep going. All right, that's looking pretty good here. Don't have to go crazy, but you just want all your ingredients mixed well together. And it's tempting to think, let's just go ahead and pour all of this into the flour. But you know, I have just found that it's better to pour some in, pour as much as you think you'll need, and slowly be able to add more to make it a little bit looser. So let's go ahead and add our mixture into our flour. And I'm gonna use probably about a little over half of what I've made. And I'm gonna take my ring off here because it does get a little bit sticky. And let's go ahead and begin to incorporate it together. Now, this particular dough that you're gonna be making should be light and fluffy. It should not be hard and tough. So as you're making it, keep that in mind, that the feel of the fingers is that it should be a very soft dough. And if you're wondering, well, what's the difference between a soft dough and a hard dough? It's really how much liquid you're adding. You may want to add more liquid than normal when you're making like a normal bread. Chinese steamed breads are always very fluffy. That's kind of part of the value system when we make these things. Okay, so let me just show you what it is right now. You have some pieces here, but you can see there's still a lot of dryness. So I'm gonna keep mixing it. And what I wanna do is I want to incorporate all of it so that all of the dustiness has gone away, and all I have left is 1 clump of dough. Now I can tell just from experience, right now, if I were to start clumping this together, it might be a little bit tough. So I'm gonna add just a little bit more of my milk mixture, not too much because it does go a long way. Just about that much. And I want it to really be soft when I'm kneading it into one ball. It's gonna be sticky on your fingers. Don't worry about that. As you go, it'll stick to itself and off of your fingers in a little bit. I'm also doing this in a bowl by hand. To be quite frank, when I do this for my kids at home, I actually just use the KitchenAid. You could put all your ingredients into the KitchenAid and it'll do it. You never even have to touch any of the ingredients. It is a little bit more fun to use your hands, but that's an option for you as well. All right, let's really work this dough now. It's starting to come together, as you can see. All right, and I feel that it is pretty soft, and I like that. I think if I were to add more liquid, it might get a little bit too soft. So let's go ahead and go with the amount that we've got here. That wound up being probably 1 cup of milk altogether to our 2 cups of flour. So let's go ahead and work this here. Try to get this. I'm gonna pull it out now and work on my countertop. This is where the sifter comes in handy. Let's just give that a little bit of flour. Don't want too much. Again, I don't want to toughen up my dough. And let's go ahead and work that. Now, the point here, the point of doing the initial knead on your dough is to form the gluten chains that are in the bread, okay? So what we want to do is we want to knead it so that the gluten, the proteins begin to stick together. And we actually are able to have a chewy bread later on because we've done this kneading work ahead of time. So let me get all this off my fingers and get it stuck to the dough. All right, let's go here. We're just gonna do a quick knead on it. You don't have to do it too thoroughly, but you do have to do some to help form that gluten in your bread. All right, you can see it already coming together here. I like to use the heel of my palm to push in and roll it back. You can see it's not sticking to the table, and the reason why is because it likes to stick to itself more than to the table. I don't even have flour underneath the dough ball right now. All right, just about 3. You know, they say you should knead for about 3 minutes for this recipe. I have found that, you know, once the gluten begins to form, it can only do so much. I've done it where I've kneaded it for literally 15 minutes by hand, and I've kneaded it for about 3 minutes, and frankly, the result is about the same. So once you've got a dough ball that looks like this, what you want to do now is you want to put it back into the bowl, and you want to cover it. I like to use plastic wrap. You can also use a wet towel. What you want to do is you will want to cover it and let it rest. Now, what happens when you're resting it? All those gluten chains that you made by pushing all of that together is going to begin to relax, and the yeast has a chance to begin to grow and to make that dough begin to rise a little bit. So let's go ahead and leave this for half an hour, and we'll catch back up after that time. Okay, so after you've let your dough rest for about 30 minutes, you should come back and test it. And look at this. It feels so nice and soft, very spongy. And that is exactly what we need. Now, let me tell you what I've done in the meantime. You can see my setup has changed quite a bit. I've taken scallions, and I actually said earlier that we call the roll like a flour. I was wrong about that, I forgot. We call this particular cut of scallion, we call this 葱花, which is just, this is the part that kind of looks floury, okay? So this is what the name comes from, is from this minced up scallion. And I've got my vegetable oil here. I've got a pastry brush to apply the oil. I've got my Maldon salt, and let me now roll out my dough. So I'm gonna take my sifter, and I just wanna do a very light dusting on my work surface so that my dough does not stick to my surface. Let's go ahead and take the dough out. My saran wrap did not stick to it, which is great. If yours does, it's not a problem. Don't worry about it. It just means that maybe next time you put a little bit of flour on top of there, okay? So first thing I wanna do is I wanna make kind of a square-ish shape with my hands. And what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna roll this into a rectangle as best as I can. I'll do a little bit of dusting right on there. And I'm gonna dust my hand just a little bit so that I can dust my roller as well, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to roll this out nice and even, and I wanna roll it into a rectangular shape so that I can apply my oil, my salt, and my scallions. All right, once I've got it this way, let's go ahead and we'll flip it this way. And if it's not perfectly rectangular, you're just like everyone else. It's not really possible to get it perfect, okay? So get this pushed out here. Let's go ahead and turn it one more time this direction. All right. Don't push too hard. You don't want to completely flatten your dough. But once you've got it nice and even, I got this side needs a little bit more. Now, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and apply our oil and our salt and our scallions, okay? So we can be pretty generous with this here. Put the oil on. And we want one even coat all the way around. If it gets on your table, totally fine, expected. A thin layer of oil is really all that we need. All right, we've got that on. And let's go ahead and let's sprinkle our scallions next. And you know what? I really love scallion, so I want to put a lot on there. In fact, I'm going to try to get, if I can, I'm going to try to get all of the scallion on. And let's go ahead and spread that out. Now, what we don't want to do, you don't want to spread it out on the very end because that's the part that's going to kind of seal it. So in the meantime, we can spread it all around, especially here in the beginning, edge to edge. If it falls out, it's not a problem. Okay, you got that evenly. And now this is the Maldon. I don't know if you can get a good view of that. This Maldon salt, it comes in these big chunks. And the reason we use this is because the feel of it in our mouth is really gonna be terrific. Really, really crunchy. And again, it is salt. You gotta be careful not to make it too salty, but it is nice to add that crispiness all the way through. Just a little bit more. Okay, now here's what we do. You'll wanna take the end that's closer to you and you wanna lift and fold and begin to roll this huachuen toward you, okay? Just like this. We're gonna roll it all up. Make it nice and even as much as you can. And again, this part doesn't have any because that's the part that's going to kind of seal it at the very end. Don't want to lose any of my delicious scallions. All right. Okay, now that is all sealed and rolled together. Now, what you can do is you can actually stretch it out a little bit if you want to kind of like make it a little bit thinner to work with. And then you can cut it, and we'll cut it in a second here. Okay, so that's all done here. And let's go ahead and slice it up. All right, let's see here. Probably aim to do about 8 of them here. So we'll do half about there. use your pastry cutter for this. And then each of the halves in half. All right. And then one last tip, take a chopstick, and what you're gonna wanna do is take this here, and we will push down to reveal the sides. Now we have layering, right? And when you push it down, what's gonna happen is the layers are gonna come up like a butterfly. So push this all the way down to the bottom. Oh, and hopefully it won't stick to your chopstick like mine did, okay? So I'll do it again. In fact, I might just give it a quick dusting so that my chopstick doesn't stick. And let's go ahead and do each one of these. One by one. Again, you want to push it across the closed sides, not across the open sides. Everyone. Okay, now we're going to get them on parchment paper. So I've got these pre-cut. I'm going to use this to help me lift here. Let me set a bunch of these out here. Okay, we'll get one on each one of these. Okay, now we're gonna get them into the steamer. This is a bamboo steamer, and you can see it's got plenty of steam in there. Oh, had a potato in there testing it. Sorry about that. All right, so what we'll do is we will take each piece here, get it centered on the parchment, and we're gonna go ahead and put that into the steamer to let those cook and let them rise. Make sure they don't touch. The parchment paper helps it not to stick to the bamboo, and the placement helps it not to stick to each other. All right, we'll go ahead and cover that back up, and we're gonna let that steam at a pretty high steaming. So you want there to be a lot of steam as it's going. And we're gonna let that steam for about 12 to 15 minutes. We'll come back to check on it in a minute. Okay, so we've had our scallion buns 葱花卷 steaming here for about 15 minutes. So let's go ahead and take a look to see how they look. All right. All right, let's go ahead and turn off our fire. Here's some observations. It just smells wonderful. That fresh scallion smell with kind of that doughy background is really coming through. And I'm getting a lot of that bamboo steamer smell, which again, is really a part of the whole dish. So let's go ahead and take one out and take a look at it. It's pretty hot here. Woo! Yeah, very hot. And it did rise. Obviously, you can see all those layers with that scallion baked right in between. So very tempted to take a bite here, but it is quite hot. Let me see if I can also tear it apart. I'll go ahead and open it up. And you should have some good layering with that scallion right inside there. And boy, that is just really, really hot. And I'll see if I can tear it open. Yeah, layer by layer, you should have scallion. So good. That scallion has softened. It's actually got a sweet flavor to it. It doesn't have any of that kind of really pungent onion smell. So give it a try. Let us know what you think. Please like and share. Thanks so much for watching.